Good morning, Boomer. Good to see you. How are you?
Hey, will you turn my mic on, please? Jeez, it's unbelievable.
He did that on purpose. He had to do that on purpose.
No, he didn't do that on purpose. He always does that. And, I actually should say thank you to Steve Apria because we wouldn't have the mic, turn my mic on in the archives if it weren't for Steve Apria screwing up, but that's okay. So anyway, I'm doing well. Good to see you, brother. I haven't seen you in 2 weeks.
I know. It's been 2 full weeks.
You had a good vacation?
I did.
Good.
Some ups and downs, but mostly ups.
Good.
It was good.
That's right. Listen, at the end of the day, the baseball, as you said, is horrible right now, especially from the Mets angle, and all the stuff that is starting to come out about the Mets and how people weren't getting along, and you never know. And I was telling you, there's something around this team that just didn't seem to jive, and this goes back all the way to May and June. Where we felt like there was something off about the team, and I'm sure we'll find out more as we go on here. But reading about Verlander and how Scherzer supposedly wasn't too excited about the way that he was acting, diva-ish, if you will. I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all. But this ass whipping that took place this week by the Braves just goes to show you just how far the Mets are from legitimately competing with that team. I mean, the Braves have gone since last year when Scherzer, had that terrible outing in Atlanta. The Braves have gone meteoric, right? Meteoric.
Yes.
And the Mets have gone the other way. And it's amazing just how far these two teams are apart from one another.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be an easy fix. And I know that some people believe that Steve Cohen's going to still spend money in this offseason. He's going to make a run for Shohei Ohtani. I don't think that he is. It was a big back and forth that me and CeeLo had the week that you were off, the last time that I was in talking about this. And I don't know what type of offseason he's going to have. I just don't think that he's going to try to fix it with money again. And I don't know. This is a chicken or the egg thing with the clubhouse stuff. Did the clubhouse fall apart because the team wasn't playing well, or did the team not play well because the clubhouse sucked? I don't know, but I mean, they are a miserable season.
I will say one thing. If the clubhouse has got problems, that's right on the manager's feet. I don't care what you say. You have to manage people. You have to – and, football coaches do it all the time, and they have to do it with 3 times the amount of players and coaches and everything else that are going on around a football organization. And you can just take a look at Brian Daboll. We'll talk to him later on this morning, but see what he has done here with the New York Giants. Everybody realizes who's in charge, who's running the ship. If something goes awry, he is not going to be afraid to call somebody out. He's not here to be, a father figure to people. He's here to hold people accountable and try to win as many football games as he possibly can. And he's been around some great coaches that obviously have had an impact on him, or he would not be acting the way that he does, like on the sidelines, I'm sure in the meeting rooms, on the practice field. This Buck Showalter now all of a sudden, I start to question whether or not, he's an older baseball guy, much like Terry Collins was, and all of a sudden they know baseball, they know more baseball than we do, but do they have the capability to hold players accountable and to nip anything that's going on in the bud? If in the locker room where there is a disjointed kind of team that is not following what he wants. And if that is the case, then he's got to go.
Yeah, and if I'm him, I don't know, would you want to come back? I mean, it sounds like they're going to people hate the term punt. I know the Mets said that they're not doing that, but it doesn't sound like 2024 is going to be a year where they have the same expectations as they had this year. If you're Buck Showalter at his age, do you want to come back? Do you want to deal with that? So maybe he ends up going on his own accord, but there's a lot of money to be made with the rest of his contract. There's 2 things with Buck that I think about this year, and I don't think it's all his fault, and obviously he's a part of the problem, but 2 things I think about. When Max Scherzer got thrown out for the sticky stuff, and he just sat there or stood there on the field with his hands in his back pockets, just looking around, not arguing, while his most highest paid player and one of the faces of this team the last couple of years is getting thrown out and going ballistic, and he's just standing there doing nothing. That was a big one. And, of course, how many times have they gotten hit and nothing has gone on? Like, SNY could put a picture of him in the dugout looking pissed off because players got hit, but I mean, you never really felt like he had the team's back in those situations. Maybe that can contributed to it, but there's just, we're going to sit here and try to blame everything and look back. Was it the Diaz injury? Was it Verlander's personality? Did Scherzer fall off? I mean, the problems keep mounting and mounting, and really, what type of team are you going to get next year is really the only question that I have. I don't even care what happened this year. I want to know what team we're going to get next year.
You know, regarding getting hit, I think I heard Ron Darling say about 2 or 3 weeks ago, because they had just come off one of these series where there were a number of Met players hit. I think Ron Darling said that as the Mets hitters are the most hit, players in the league, but the Met pitchers have also hit the most players. So I don't know about any of that stuff.
Right.
But the coming out and putting your hands in your back pockets when your superstar is getting tossed because of sticky stuff. Here's what I would have wanted. I would have wanted Buck Showalter to go into Max Scherzer and say, "Hey, man, you can't do this. You're making $43 million." Now, he would never say that to him, but the way I would look at it, be like, "What are you doing? You just throw us under the bus. You just basically cost us, 10, 15 days of your services when you're supposed to be the leader of this team. And when the leader of this team gets thrown out and suspended on top of it, what are you doing?" I mean, and I understand that all the older guys are going to be looking for an edge. And I think that's exactly what Scherzer was looking for. He was looking for an edge. And that's embarrassing for a manager. The manager really can't argue from the umpire standpoint, especially when all 4 umpires are going, "Yeah, that's sticky. That's the stickiest I've ever. That's so much stickiness. I've never felt that much stickiness."
Yeah, but I mean, don't you think you just want to, even if you're Max Scherzer and you know that you screwed up, you just want your manager to stand up there and argue with them?
There's not much he
just
can
to do it.
There's
I mean,
no. I want the manager in Max Scherzer's face, maybe behind the scenes, not out in public. Like, let's say that is Brian Daboll handling Max Scherzer.
Yeah.
What do you think Brian Daboll's saying to him?
Man, I tell you.
It's baseball and football completely different, I know. That's the thing. And the thing that I also worry about, like a guy like Buck Showalter. He's been around, and we all love Buck Showalter for a lot of different reasons, but he's never won. And maybe he's never won because his message after a couple of years now all of a sudden starts to go by the wayside. And I just, if there's a problem in that locker room, he's the one that's got to handle it. He can't shy away from a Justin Verlander or a Max Scherzer or Pete Alonso or the problems between McNeil and Lindor, that the hump bump in the middle of the lot, which by the way got taken out.
Yeah, right. They got rid of that real quick.
Yeah. So, but the point is, like the Javi Baez thumbs down. I mean, think of all this crap that has gone on around here under Buck Showalter.
I mean, it really.
And I don't know who the answer is, honestly. G, I don't know.
Well, Buck did not have the thumbs down thing. Was not Buck.
Oh, that
was Luis Rojas. But I mean, I can't believe we're sitting here having this conversation in the middle of August after last year. We could not have thrown more bouquets at Buck Showalter and what he did with this team. Turned it around, attitude, personality, Buck ball, perfect guy for this team, perfect manager. I can't believe they didn't go to a guy like him earlier, and it was Luis Rojas and Mickey Callaway and all these losers, and now you got a real baseball manager. And here we are a year later saying that he's not equipped for the job, and it's a hard thing to argue. I mean, it really is the way they fell apart.
They got their asses handed to them.
Well, they don't care anymore. I mean, and the fans don't care anymore about this season. They don't. Not about this season. They care about the team deeply, but the Mets have no pride left.
I mean,
this group out there right now. There's no pride. A team that loses 21-3, whatever it was. I mean, there's no pride there. They don't care. It doesn't happen. Even if they came out and won yesterday, it doesn't matter. They're just done. I mean, it's just in this team. I keep going back to the age-old Joe Beningo Jets thing. You can change the practice facility. You can change the uniforms. You can change head coaches. The same freaking stuff. That's what it is with the Mets at this point. They've changed the owner. They've changed the manager. They've changed the general manager. They've done everything differently from the Wilpons. And once again, we are sitting here neck deep in this horrendous season. It's just, I don't know how, they're just cursed. There's just something wrong with them. They're just rotten. This franchise is just rotten.
I know there have been a lot of bad series for the Mets over the years. I could probably point to about 6 or 7 of them over the years that basically make you realize that the season's over, that they got no shot, and they basically have thrown in the towel. But this series this weekend, they won last night finally, but the fact of the matter is the amount of runs that they gave up and how bad they looked and how good the Atlanta Braves look from a pitching standpoint, from a hitting standpoint, from a base stealing standpoint. You name it. You name it. You name every aspect. Even when they brought in their shortstop to pitch compared to Mendick. I mean, Mendick got hammered, and their shortstop got 3 pop-ups.
Yeah, Mendick got whacked. It's really bad. But the Braves, this has been going on for a really, really long time. Like, think about this. This is another one of those organizational things. I know they probably should have won more World Series, but my entire baseball life has been the Braves being better than the Mets. In the 90s when they had those pitchers and they were just better. And then, I mean, at the beginning of 2000, you think about the 1999 series when they are down 3-0. You think about then 2001 when they got off to a bad start, then tried to come back, and then Brian Jordan went like 10 for 10 with 9 home runs in the series in September. You think about last year. It just has gone on. It's 20, 30 years of this. It's amazing. And I don't know if it'll ever change, especially if you get Steve Cohen in here, who comes in. And by the way, like, everybody wants he's still the greatest. He's going to spend all the money. Steve Cohen's his ownership to this point has been a nightmare. It's been a total nightmare. Okay, and they fell apart, had nothing to show for it.
2 out of the last 3 years.
And then they brought back the same team, and they sucked.
Well, and they added to the team.
He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, everybody thinks, oh, he's got so much money, knows what he's doing. He threw a bunch of money at people. It failed miserably, and now he's completely changing course in this year and saying that doesn't work. He's a guy. He's making it up as he's going along. He doesn't know what works.
Isn't he being advised by Billy Epler and his baseball staff? I mean, isn't that the idea?
How many times we said this with James Dolan? It's hiring the right guys.
Right. Well, and maybe that right guy is Stearns.
And
that's probably going to happen at some point in the offseason. So he'll come in as president of baseball operations, somebody who is a New Yorker, somebody who has built the Milwaukee Brewers, and they have been a very successful franchise.
Yeah.
So that's probably the next step.
I just think, like, everybody will say, well, how about the year that they won 101 games? And, like, it drives me nuts, because all I remember from that season is they blew the division. The coolest thing they had going on was this trumpet song where Mr. and Mrs. Met would go out there. Then they get their asses kicked, and then they come back and now are 30 games under 500. Like, what is that season? What the 2022 Mets were what exactly? Tell me. They were a team that got their asses kicked in 2 of the biggest series that they played when it mattered. And then the only thing you remember from that series is Edwin Diaz coming out of the bullpen to a trumpet. That's it. That's all they were. And now here they are with just rubble. They're just total rubble. So, like, this whole where they won 101 games thing, it means nothing. It means especially when you come back this year and puke on yourself. Well, I'm so tired of them. God, I'm so tired of them.
So what they've done is they've pivoted, and they've basically eaten $100 million and bought a minor league team for that $100 million is essentially what he's done. When you think about it, think about the contracts that he has held on to in order to get top prospects from other clubs.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Those guys better work out.
That's basically what he's done. That's exactly what he's done. And I don't see them going after Shohei Ohtani. I really don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
I mean, he's basically come out and said that, but there's a lot of people believe that he's playing coy or whatever.
I don't know.
I just don't. I mean, to me, it's been pretty obvious that he's not going to spend the type of money that he did this past year in the team coming up. He just doesn't want to do that again.
This was very net-like. Yeah, when you think about it, when you think about what the Nets spent and what they got out of it, and what the Mets have spent the last 2 years and what they've gotten out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that the Nets actually had higher expectations. There were a lot of people who believed that team was the NBA Finals favorite that first year when those guys were healthy together. Obviously, the Kevin Durant season when he was hurt didn't count. The favorite almost the entire year. Now, the Mets were up there, and they were favored to win the division, whatever, but they never were like World Series favorites. So it was really bad. This was really bad.
And by the way, just to go back to the Nets for 1 second, did you hear what Andre Iguodala said about Kevin Durant in practice?
I did not.
Out in Golden State?
No.
He said they go out there and they would practice for like 20 minutes and they call it a day. That's what they were doing. And Andre was saying, it was kind of led by Kevin Durant. practice 20. Do you remember the story about how Kyrie Irving was running his other practices?
Yeah. Yep.
Because he didn't feel like they were practicing enough?
Yeah.
I wonder if that was the Kevin Durant influence on Steve Nash, and then Kyrie Irving having a problem with not practicing.
Well, here's one thing I'll say. They won 2 championships out there with Kevin Durant and Golden State, and he won 2 finals MVPs, so I guess they didn't need to practice. But, I mean, yeah, it might have been. But, I mean, Kyrie Irving wanted to work harder than somebody?
Well,
like, that doesn't sound like –
But you remember those stories. Remember
he
was running his own practices?
Yeah. I mean, those guys were out of
So maybe it was after the 20 minutes were over with.
Yeah.
You understand?
I understand.
Now I hear when I
sense.
heard Andre Iguodala say that, I was like, wow, wait a minute, hold on. I wonder if he pulled this with Steve Nash and Kyrie Irving and everybody else, and maybe this is why those stories came out that Kyrie was running his own practice.
Yeah, maybe. You know, the other thing about this Justin Verlander being a diva thing,
yes,
he was barely here. How could his influence on the clubhouse been that negative? I mean, it's just such an easy guy to blame. A guy who wasn't here the year before and a guy who's no longer here. So whoever this anonymous Met was that went to Mike Puma to try to slam Justin Verlander probably needs to look at themselves in the mirror. I mean, he started off the season hurt, came back, pitched really well, and then got traded. You're telling me that this guy who's won Cy Youngs, championships, is basically regarded as one of the good guys in baseball was such a cancer in the Mets clubhouse that he sunk the team? Shut up. I mean, such an easy guy to blame.
Yeah, no, but you never know what's going on internally. You just don't know. You just don't know whether or not guys like McNeil and Lindor actually have a relationship that's salvageable, that they can play with each other. If Jeff McNeil is not here next year, that will tell you all you need to know.
Yeah.
That will tell you that, Lindor, because of his contract and everything else, he wins out.
Yeah.
He wins that argument.
Another great extension.
And then the question is, what are you going to do with Pete Alonso? And, there were reports that he was supposedly available at the trade deadline. I don't know how true those reports were. I don't know if that was just to kind of move Pete in a way that was going to get closer to the Mets in terms of a contract extension. He's got 1 year left of arbitration. It's going to be a huge number. He's putting up big numbers. So what do you do with Pete Alonso?
I would sign him. I
have
would.
to.
I mean, I don't. I'm not the guy who wants to trade him. I don't think he's the problem. I do think he's goofy. But I don't think he's holding the Mets back in any sort of way. And you got to remember how many great position players have the Mets produced in their history. And now we're talking about trading one of the ones that could end up being the best one ever.
Well, the thing about it is, when you think about the Mets that are homegrown Mets, you're thinking that you got center field, first base, and catcher locked up.
Yeah.
Those are homegrown Mets. And second base is a homegrown Met, too. And McNeil, they move around. But I don't know. They are in a dark place right now.
They are.
They are. I don't know. Even if they would have won 2-2 against Atlanta, it would have been a little bit better. But the fact that they just got absolutely ass kicked, it's unbelievable.
I want it to get worse. I just want it to get as bad as
Brian Snitker came out there and said, "Bend over, Buck. I'm gonna kick you right in the ass." And that's exactly what happened. No, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it did. It did, and it's embarrassing for them, and it continues to get more embarrassing. So there you go. This is probably one of the last times we're going to really talk about them unless some more crap comes out because they are, at this point, completely irrelevant. And you know who is relevant? The New York Giants, and we are here at Giants camp.